On the agenda tonight, we're going to be attempting to answer the question, is using vibrato when singing cheating? And we're going to be taking a look at Julien Clerc, and he's going to be singing Mademoiselle. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So I think this one has come in due to the fact that we've been looking at auto-tune and pitch correction recently, and we compared those with effects like reverb and delay because other people were saying that using those effects were cheating, but then we did find the difference between those and auto-tune and pitch correction. So now the request for this video came in asking if using vibrato was cheating when singing because it meant that you didn't have to hit a pitch accurately and that you could just do vibrato, and that therefore effectively hides your inability to hit pitch. The first thing to say, without even listening to anything, is that in my opinion, vibrato isn't cheating at all because you are creating the vibrato yourself with your voice. When we're relating it to auto-tune and pitch correction, those are things that change your voice and create something that didn't exist in the first place. So I think that's why a lot of people see it as cheating. But applying that same term to vibrato, if I go ah and create vibrato myself, I've done that. It's now up to people to decide whether they like that sound or not. You know, if I'm singing original music and original songs, they decide whether they like it or not. I've produced something that hasn't been manipulated. So in my opinion, personally, I don't think vibrato is cheating. In fact, I think that vibrato makes the voice sing, and a controlled vibrato for me is something that I like to hear in a voice. I do like to hear singers be accurate pitch-wise, of course. It's just, you know, something that I think is essential to singing well, but having control of vibrato is a skill in itself, and we will explore that a little bit later on. So we will jump into this. The pitch monitoring software will pop up on screen, and in the background I have a little bit of the video that goes with this. There's going to be a link in the description below, so you guys can click on that if you want to watch this whole video without me interrupting it, because I will jump in. But let's get started.
Mademoiselle qui m'avait appris les rois de France et mon pays, les grandes cités industrielles, les montagnes, les neiges éternelles, ma reconnaissance infinie. Mademoiselle qui m'avait appris la lecture et la poésie, les jolies fables de La Fontaine, Victor Hugo et Paul Verlaine, vous avez embelli ma vie. Le son de votre voix me faisant la leçon, je l'ai gardé en moi comme une presque chanson, comme une presque chanson. Mademoiselle qui m'avait appris que la liberté a un prix pour les chiens et les papillons, pour les hommes de toutes conditions. Je pense à vous dès que j'écris. Mademoiselle qui m'avait appris à ne pas confondre les cris des marchands de révolution avec le peuple pour de bon. Je me dois de vous dire merci. Le son de votre voix me faisant la leçon, je l'ai gardé en moi comme une presque chanson, comme une presque chanson.
So I'm just going to jump in here. The first thing to say is that Julian has his own vocal sound, of course, and he does have a very wide vibrato. In fact, I would say that this is the widest vibrato that we've ever seen. Even this last phrase that we're looking at here, we are just beyond or just flat of the E3 here. But if we're going up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I mean, if we take in this amount here, we're saying 7 semitones worth of vibrato. And it is usual to see maybe a semitone, maybe a couple of semitones worth of vibrato. I know that in previous analysis videos that we've done, Elvis, for example, went maybe 3 to 4 semitones, but going to 7 is quite dramatic. Now, the thing about having such a wide vibrato is that it gives the voice its own sound. And I often say about vibrato being the fingerprint, the thumbprint, effectively, of the singer. It starts to become part of their personality. So having said that, I think if you listen to 2 singers and one of them was Julian and the other one wasn't, or even if the other one had exactly the same tonality to his voice as Julian, then you would still know which one was Julian's voice because of the vibrato, because of that thumbprint on the sound. Now, as to whether he's using this to try and cheat or avoid singing notes, like I've already said before this video, that I don't think it's cheating. In fact, I would go as far to say that this sound is natural, that he isn't doing this in order to try and cheat from hitting particular pitches. It's just the way that he sings. And I think Julien is about 75 years of age now, so he's had a very long and successful career. So we've also got to throw that into the mix, that as you do age, your voice can change. And something that does change in a lot of singers' voices is their vibrato and how wide it starts to become as they age. Now, because we've looked at so many great voices on the channel and analysed them in depth, I'd say that a lot of singers seem to get a wider vibrato as they age, and this only happens from all of the videos and singers that I've looked at. It only happens with those singers who have a natural vibrato when they are younger. And what I mean by that is they're not controlling the speed and the frequency of their vibrato. It's happening naturally. So as they age, their voice and their vibrato may change, but the vibrato, they've never consciously had control of that. So whatever happens to it, it just happens, and it's just part of the aging process. So there have been other singers that I've heard singing younger in their career, and they've controlled their vibrato, meaning that for more up-tempo songs, they've made it slightly faster. For slower tempo songs, they slow it down. And as they age, because their vibrato has always been under control consciously, it means that it stays that way, even getting into their 50s and 60s and 70s. So, because it's a conscious process, it means it never really changes. Only something that is subconscious is going to change, because you never really have control of that. It just is what it is. Hopefully you'll be able to hear that dramatic change. It's like is covering a lot of pitch. Now, the thing about this is that the note will be inside this vibrato, and I do understand the question of people saying, or this particular person saying, that vibrato was cheating, or at least asking that, because you don't really get a reference point as to a note because it is changing all the time. But the note will be in there. If the vibrato was irrelevant to the note, then it wouldn't be singing, because you wouldn't have any reference point. Now, what I have done with this vocal is make my own version of it being pitch corrected, so that we can look at the vocal on the left, which has been corrected, and on the right hand side, and what you'll see is an ever so slight change in the pitch. So let's listen to the corrected version. And when I say corrected, I'm talking about moving Julian's vocal just slightly higher if it's flat, or slightly lower if it's sharp, so we can hear the effect that it has, and whether you can even tell that effect because of the vibrato.
Mademoiselle qui m'avait appris la lecture et la poésie, les jolies fables de La Fontaine, Victor Hugo et Paul Verlaine, vous avez embelli ma vie.
And what I want to do is listen to that exact same verse, but now the actual version that hasn't been corrected.
Mademoiselle qui m'avait appris la lecture et la poésie, les jolies fables de La Fontaine, Victor Hugo et Paul Verlaine, vous avez embelli ma vie.
And there we have it. So now we can actively compare what we heard to begin with, which is the pitch corrected version, with the actual vocal from the song. And I'd say that they sounded quite similar. That the pitch corrected version, you didn't suddenly think, oh, well, this is obviously pitch corrected because of the vibrato that's on there. Because the note is changing so much, you can't really pin down exactly where that note is. Now, when you're listening to a straight note and then you pitch correct it, of course, you hear that change dramatically because it's changing what is a flat note. The note isn't changing all the time. So, I mean, when we're just comparing my corrected version on the left here, you can see this B3, the vibrato is happening around that. So here, the vibrato is happening below that note and actually just descending. And because I've just moved it all up, you can still see that descending nature of the note. But the B3 is now the middle of where the vibrato is. And here, the vibrato is actually flat of the B3. But the B3 is the note that would be hit with the vocal melody. It's almost like modern technology is irrelevant to Julian's voice, because even if you correct it, it still has the same sound to it because the note is constantly moving. So you could argue that, well, he doesn't need pitch correction because it just sounds the same after you correct it, after you move this over the top.
Hugo et Paul Verlaine, vous avez embelli ma vie. Hugo et Paul Verlaine, vous avez embelli ma vie.
So I'd say especially this vibrato here, we'll have a little listen to this. We'll take it back and listen to it in slow motion, because that was a sudden wave of vibrato that was a lot more dramatic than the previous waves we've had.
Hugo et Paul Verlaine, vous avez embelli ma vie.
And because it happened so quickly, you don't really take in that we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 semitones of vibrato just for that split second. It kind of flies under the radar. Like I said, if vibrato was cheating, then nobody would ever have to worry about hitting any note. This has still got relevance, but it's just Julian's voice. It's his vibrato.
Mademoiselle qui m'avait appris.
I mean, there's no doubt that we get Mademoiselle na. We get that pitch. So it's not just a wild vibrato that's being used to hide the fact that Julien can't hit pitches. He's hitting the pitches and his voice has this natural vibrato that he's not adding to it to try and pretend that he's hitting, or that he is hitting a note when he can't. The point of all of this is that you need some kind of ability to hit pitch first of all, in order for it to even sound like singing. Because if it didn't sound like singing, then people wouldn't like the singer as a singer, because it'd just be like somebody making random noises over a backing. So there's that to be said for it. You've got to be able to hit pitch, but then whether somebody's vibrato is to your taste or not, that's your decision that you've got to make. And obviously it's going to be a totally subjective opinion of your own. And that's why people choose particular singers. That's why people listen to Julien's voice. That's why people listen to anybody else's voice, is they like the sound of it. And what I would say is that if everybody sang straight notes, and that's how people were judged as vocalists, first of all, vibrato is a skill and something that can take a long time to master to be able to control it. Some singers have a natural vibrato and it's just something that is part of their voice. But yeah, controlling it is a skill, so I don't see it as cheating. If anything, when somebody can control their vibrato, you know, having learned to sing myself, I'm really impressed by that because I know how difficult it is. All the great singers have a great vibrato in their voice, and if everybody sung straight, and imagine if they were classed or rated as to how straight they could hit a note, it means that here we'd go na 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 na, and the vocal, everybody singing every single song you hear would be like that. It doesn't matter what the melody is, but every note would end like na, without any vibrato. For me, that would be so one-dimensional, and every singer would start sounding like everybody else. And this brings me to auto-tune, pitch correction, because that's what it does to everybody's voice. It snaps it to lines. So if we were now trying to rate singers on how accurate they were pitch-wise according to 440 Hz tuning, every single new singer in the charts will be the best singer of all time because they're all hitting these notes straight and dead on the lines. Now, just to prove my point, or at least give some basis for my opinion, that Julian's vocal had this natural vibrato in it when he was younger and is now slowed down and become wider because it's just a subconscious thing. They're just part of his voice. This is from 1975, and this is Julian's voice back then. Let's have a listen.
Puis elle a fui, sans ses valises, vers des brouillards peu mystérieux. Parfois elle rêvait de banquise, puis préférait Tarzan furieux. Moi le cœur noué dans ma chemise, je donne toujours ce que je peux.
So we can see that, you know, this A sharp 3, he's hitting pitches accurately, but we have now got this vibrato which is undoubtedly just subconscious, just part of his voice, because in parts it's just a wobble, and look at the pitch we're now covering. It's not even one semitone. So back then, this is just what his voice did, and we can listen to this vibrato in slow motion. It is so subtle because, you know, it's not even one semitone. And as we go forward, what you might notice as well is this kind of thing where it's not only, you know, a lot tighter pitch-wise, but it is seemingly without a standard frequency to it. It does speed up. It's just something that is coming out after he's hitting a note. The other thing is, fans of Julian's voice just want to hear his voice. You know, they'll know it from when he was younger, but also they would have followed his journey. As he has aged throughout his career, they'll get used to this slight change in his vibrato, and it's not as if it happened overnight, that it's suddenly now 7 semitones compared to just, you know, 1 or not even 1 when he was younger. It's going to be a gradual process. So as his career has gone on, his vibrato's got slightly wider, but the fans who are buying the music are hearing this change not all of a sudden. So for them, it's probably quite subtle and potentially unnoticeable until they go back to 1975 and listen to songs from back then and, you know, compare the vibrato to now. But I'm pretty sure people aren't doing that, and they're not isolating vocals and looking at pitch monitoring software and all the stuff that we do on the channel here to look at this kind of detail. They're just appreciating Julian's voice. So, I mean, it is an interesting one to look at tonight and a bit of a case study, really. But as always, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, whether you think that using vibrato is cheating or whether you like to hear vibrato in a singer's voice. And keep those suggestions and requests coming in the comment section below too. And if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys at the next one. Rock!